Have you ever walked through Outland? I know nothing to do with New World, just stick with me. I mean actually walked. Like, gotten off your mount and walked. It sucks. It's probably the worst feeling in the world of Warcraft. But why does it feel so bad?
Hey, Vsauce, Michael here.
It feels bad because the scale of the world is not meant for your character. The scale of the world is meant for your mount. This is why the distance between two trees in a forest is like 48 feet apart. Once people are expected to all be using mounts, the distance between points of interest is just going to increase to fit the walking time between old points of interest. You see this in all kinds of games. Elden Ring, Borderlands, Shadow of the Colossus, and many others. These games just take your mount away when they want you to be at your character scale, and everything else is designed in a way where your default walking speed is really slow, because the character's default walking speed is supposed to be the mounted speed in those areas. This is ultimately why New World doesn't need traditional MMO mounts. It's already designed in a way where walking doesn't feel awful. Just because New World doesn't need mounts in a traditional sense does not mean they can't work. Let's start by narrowing down the issues. There are three main issues that come with mounts. The first one is mounted speed becoming the default speed, or in other terms, people always being mounted like outside of combat. The second issue is people just YOLOing themselves right past groups of enemies. The third issue is with faster land speed, people will ignore the smaller details of the world. You kind of want people to engage with the world a little bit. It's good to know what we're not trying to do, and now we need to think about what we're trying to accomplish. The biggest thing people would expect from mounts is to move faster. So we're trying to make people travel faster throughout the world. Another big thing that comes with mounts is collecting them, and people like to show off. And the third thing is to make travel less boring. Well, the first point is to make travel faster. So not making mounts walk faster than walking that's not an option. You have to have faster mount speed. However, we need a way to make people actually want to walk rather than just always being mounted. I think a good solution would be to only allow mounts to be summoned inside cities. This would solve the issue of people always being mounted and actually encourage different types of travel. Will you decide to teleport and walk somewhere, or would you prefer to mount up and run out of town? This idea would do nothing to solve players YOLOing themselves right past groups of mobs and points of interest. A solution could be to give your mount a health bar, and when they run out of health, they just die. This would make players more cautious while using their mounts. Add a system where you can park your mount at a camp and they can be safe while you go inside points of interest, and now you have interesting gameplay built around the mounts. This idea would take a little reworking of the mobs in the game though. If you ever actually walked anywhere, you would know that there are very few safe paths throughout the world, but this doesn't mean the problem has no solutions. If they want to keep the current mob density, perhaps you can make it so when your mount dies, you just wait for a cooldown, like 2 to 5 minutes, and you can summon your mount again. Another idea would be to add combat maneuvers to your mount. Nothing like attacks, just something to stagger an enemy or slow them down so you can run away, or like a dodge or something. Perhaps your mount could be equipped with armor to resist a little bit of the damage you take along the safer of these mob dense areas. There's plenty of concepts and ideas you can do to get around fighting these weaker mobs in the open areas. And since our idea for a mount is pretty much just an actual NPC, why don't we go a little bit further with it? A cool idea would be to give mounts skill trees. This could be where you unlock the combat maneuvers or the ability to wear armor on your horse or your cat or your bear or whatever, or like passive perks like running faster, jumping higher, being able to carry some stuff for you. You can also make it so that every new mount gets a new skill tree. Like, not like a totally unique skill tree, just like a second spec. The ability to have differently talented mounts without buying a respec would be enough to really feel the difference between mounts and like build a connection with your different mounts. You can have a horse that's talented into going real fast, but it wouldn't have the tools to traverse some more difficult areas with mobs and stuff in it. Or a horse that's slower but can deal with dodging and avoiding and running away from all that kind of stuff. This would further help with the issue of people just running past everything in higher difficulty areas. If you want to have the ability to use your mount near those areas, you won't be able to have a super speedy mount. You have to pick and choose which conveniences you want. This idea could be expanded into different types of mounts. Different animals can have different things they're better at. Like horses can walk all day long, but maybe a buffalo can carry a ton of weight for you. or like a bear has like all the health. There's so many ways to make mounts more in-depth than just a speed boost button. By giving players more choices and more to think about when traveling, I believe these ideas solve our issues of boring travel, making mounts a default, running on a mount past fucking everything, and still makes traveling faster. But now it's time for your part. If you like these ideas, give the video a share and maybe someone at AGS will let us have cool mounts in New World. And if you don't like the idea, tell me why in the comments. I want to know why it's bad.